What's something you tried once and instantly knew it wasn't for you? Story 1. Sales. I don't like convincing people they need things. They can decide for themselves. Don't want a phone? That's cool with me. My boss once questioned why I didn't try to push an iPhone 14 onto an old man who came in asking for advice on how to use his flip phone. Always loved that one. The only time I ever had a good performance was when I got a lucky streak and the customers came in wanting something already. My answer was retail, but this right here is definitely a part of why I don't like retail. Trying to convince people to buy things they don't need doesn't sit well in my conscience. Or another credit card, God forbid. I worked at a bank right out of college and thought it would be an awesome starter job. Then I learned that banks are essentially credit stores. I was repeatedly reprimanded for not selling more credit. So I tried harder, and I learned the only people who want more credit are those who can't get it. And the people who can get it don't want more. I quit without notice, and they told me I was on the do not rehire list. I asked them if they could make that industry-wide. I genuinely feel sympathy for anyone who works in a bank. I feel like they thought they were about to work some fancy finance job, but you're essentially a Walmart employee whose only product is credit. I worked in sales for a while, and that's what bosses don't understand. If you sell the right product to the customer, they will come back, and or tell their friends that they can trust you. If you start overselling stuff, they will hate you and never come back. I was the only person making my yearly objective, and I never pressured anyone to buy anything. And my boss had to criticize me, so she told me I should wear more lipstick. Not selling that iPhone 14 was the right thing to do. The guys at my local AT&T store are good salesmen, and I've recommended people go to their shop in particular. When I went in for a new phone, they didn't try to oversell me to get me to buy the most expensive one. They suggested phones based on what I liked about my previous phone, and they weren't pushy about it. I went with their suggestion, and I'm happy with it and saved a few bucks. Plus, they were just nice guys and not in a phony salesman way. Yep, I work at an automotive retail shop, and while we do try to upsell and make recommendations, we don't call BS jobs and try to give people a proper estimation of the severity of what we found. I worked very briefly at a Best Buy around 2013 to 2014 and absolutely freaking hated it. The morning huddles where everyone was getting hyped up with, "Let's get that money, make that money. If they're not happy, try to find a way to keep their money." I just felt dirty with that being the attitude. We have a brand called B&M Bargains here in the UK, and for years the cashiers would be on target to sell crap at the tills, whether it was chocolate or chewing gum or drinks or whatever. They would have a new item every week or so, but always something that was available in the shop. So, you would go around the whole shop, choose what you want to buy, then get to the till. They would scan your shopping and say, "Can I interest you in any dairy milk caramel today? For only $1? No, piss off. If I wanted those, I would have picked them off the shelves myself. Story 2. Living with roommates. Cannot stand it. I'm fine living with a partner, family, or by myself, but a stranger? No thank you. Same. I had a roommate once who seemed like such a sweet and innocent guy. He was 19 and it was his first time living on his own. It wasn't long before he started leaving poop-smeared underwear on the bathroom floor, using up all of my dishes to the point where I had nothing to eat because he'd kept them all in his room. When I asked for them, he'd dump all the dirty dishes into the kitchen and wouldn't clean them. He didn't do laundry. He would wait until he visited his mom once every 2 months so that she could wash them for him. He started smelling so bad that I had to put a towel under my bedroom door so the smell wouldn't come in. It was horrific. My partner and I had to tell his parents when they came to visit, and they were mad at me and my partner because we weren't understanding enough of a 19-year-old and should be patient. We ended up having to evict him. I made a comment about how I couldn't afford to move out, and multiple people told me to get roommates, and that it would be the best years of my life. I would meet so many great people. Then once I meet someone, we can move in together. Screw that crap. I've witnessed too many nightmarish situations through friends with roommates and stressing their relationship out by moving in for financial convenience. People make you feel like you're entitled because you want to afford a place of your own. It's ridiculous. Same. I always had a roommate from hell in every living situation. First a kleptomaniac, then a girl who was 26, divorced twice, and on her third fiancé who she hadn't even met in person yet. Then I lived with a pathological liar and her manipulative friend who constantly gaslit me. They tried to blame a blown car engine on me and wanted me to buy her a new car even though I never even drove it. I never made it to the end of any of my contracts. I lived with roommates very temporarily while on a work assignment in San Francisco, and I hated it. I'm sure my roommates were nice enough, but I was so freaked out by that idea that I hid in my room all the time. And only went to the bathroom when I could tell nobody was in the common areas. I woke up an hour ago and I haven't had breakfast yet because I couldn't tell if someone was in the kitchen. I appreciate my roommate playing music or TV on his phone while using the kitchen so I can hear that and avoid him, which I hear when I leave my room. OP, I think he just left the house. Off I go. My other roommate seems to only use the kitchen between 4:30 a.m. and 7:30 a.m. though. I never have to wait for her to finish using the kitchen. In fact, she's a bit of a ghost. I know she's here because her car is here, but I almost never see her. I had a middle manager tell me, why don't you just find a roommate on Craigslist and get friggin' murdered? Have all my crap stolen? I live in Florida, where a ton of meth, fent, and coke is at. Instead of giving me a promotion or a raise, after multiple weeks of absolutely killing it on the phone, getting a bunch of 5-star reviews from customers at a brand new job, I got Employee of the Month within 1 month of finishing training. I was recommended by 12 other people to become a team lead so that they could ask for help and actually get helped. I proved I was more than enough to be an assistant manager as I was 3rd pick out of the top 5. This frickin' guy who runs the project looks me dead in the eyes and asks, why don't you just get a roommate? I asked, who? All of my friends are married and have kids. Why don't you try Craigslist? In my 1-bed, 1-bath apartment that I'm trying to stay in, is it too expensive for $12 an hour? I was making 18, but got laid off after 10-something years, and got a new job at this crap company with this dumb crap middle manager. The company makes upwards of $3 billion a year, and is in the Fortune 500 company. So these guys jammed down our throats during training that it was so important that they had lots of money and progress in business. $16 an hour was too much for a top employee, when I was making almost $19 an hour at my previous job, that I had worked for 10 years with 0 write-ups or problems. Like, what's the frickin' point of even being a model employee if it gets you absolutely nowhere? I hate corporate America so much. Story 3. Manual labor. My grandfather did construction. One summer, he hired me on one of the roofing teams. All it took was 1 summer running shingles up and down a ladder to convince me to stay in school. My dainty little IT hands, thank you, Pop, well played. I grew up on a farm, so I knew I didn't want to work hard from an early age. My grandfather really drove home the point one summer, though, that we had to clean the septic tank. I had to dig up the access points. He knew exactly where they were, but told me he didn't. I ended up digging up the whole top of the tank in 90-degree heat with high humidity and very rocky soil. I miss manual labor. I work from home 40 hours a week. It's boring. I've made no new friends in the last 3.5 years. I've gotten fat. I've become this debilitatingly introverted slug. I feel useless, like I haven't actually worked. I'm about to quit and go find anything else. I don't mind occasional manual labor, still do things like build fences, drywall, concrete, etc. But the summer after my first year of college, I worked at a lumber yard. I completely wore out a pair of leather work gloves every 2 weeks from moving all of that rough lumber around. When I went back to college, I pinned one of those worn-out pairs of gloves to the bulletin board above my desk as a reminder and kept them there until I graduated. Worked on a grounds crew at a high-tech park after my freshman year of college. Every morning the crew would gather in the common room and get our assignments for the morning, or day, or week, depending on the work. About a month in, the foreman gave me a pneumatic jackhammer and compressor, a pick and shovel, and a digging spike, and told me to go out to the parking lot of one of the buildings and look for a line spray painted from the building out to a street lamp, about 50 yards out in the lot. He then told me to break up the tarmac with the jackhammer in about a 1-foot strip from both sides of the line, then use the picks if necessary to break it and the gravel underneath up, enough so that I could shovel it to one side and expose the earth. Then used the pick and spike to dig down, through the packed earth and Virginia red clay, until I found the conduit that the power line to the lamp ran through, below the frost line, and examined it for holes. Keep on doing that until I found the hole, so that they could repair it and get the lamp on again. Might find it at the 5-yard mark if you're lucky, might find it at the 45-yard mark if you're not. It was out all the way. I had never used a jackhammer in my young life, 90+ degree days in Virginia summer humidity. It was during the week it took me to find the hole that I decided I would not be doing manual labor for a living. There was nothing noble about that endeavor. No lessons were learned. Besides, I don't care what the hell you have to do for money, but it ain't gonna be this. Story 4. Gambling. I gambled for the first time against my cousins when I was 13. I lost $100. That was a lot for me. Never gambled again since. I once heard something to the tune of, "The luckiest thing that can happen to you the first time you're in a casino is losing money." It's because it turns a lot of people off from gambling, or at least makes them very careful in the future, whereas first-time winners get it in their head that winning is easy, and keep chasing that first-time high, and end up losing way more over the course of their lives than they won on their first visit. Same, I just don't even like it. It's like I'm at a casino for a show, and I have to force myself to play a little because other people I'm there want to gamble a bit. I just don't like it at all. I don't understand gambling addiction. Are you addicted to losing money? The games are set up so the house wins. If this wasn't the case, the casino wouldn't exist, right? Look at how much that casino costs to build and run. Hello? Thinking that addictions have anything to do with rational thinking is a mistake. You can't logically explain the behavior surrounding any addiction, really. It's chemicals in your brain. Gambling addicts aren't addicted to losing money. They are addicted to the thrill, adrenaline, and financial hope of an action with uncertain results. Just like alcoholics or smokers aren't addicted to consuming poison, they are addicted to the way their body reacts to it. The house only wins over the long haul. When you play a lot of hands or spins, gambling addicts are always hoping for the next spin to be the one that defies the odds and is addicted to that adrenaline rush. It is a chemical high, even if it doesn't seem like one since you aren't ingesting the chemicals. You're just tricking your brain at extreme expense into producing the same chemicals. They also often start out playing games with pretty good odds, relatively speaking. You're still at a disadvantage unless you're counting cards or similar, like blackjack, and then transition over time to games that give more of an anticipation rush but with lower odds, like roulette, and eventually slots. A casino makes 70% of its revenue on slots. When I was 19, my father took me to a casino, gave me $100, and told me we weren't leaving until we lost it all. Since neither of us knew how to play any of the card games, we decided the slot machines were our best bet. Except, we kept winning. Not in a significant enough amount that we would cash out and leave. No, just enough that we could never finish losing the 100. Both my father and I got so annoyed with it all that neither of us ever gambled again. Story 5. Waitressing. I knew instantly I was objectively terrible at it, quite the same day I started. I don't understand. I was fine in engineering school, but I was immediately the dunce cap boy at any part-time food service job. Being able to figure out complex things with unlimited time and resources doesn't always translate to common sense, efficiency, and thinking of solutions on the fly. I wouldn't say I'm blessed in either sense, but I've known some objectively dumb people who were geniuses when it came to remembering orders, keeping track of all their tasks, and doing them in an efficient and logical order. Made me feel the same way even if I wasn't bad at any of the jobs per se, just like I'm in college. Why am I not as good as them? I'm a waitress, and I try to tell people we make good tips as good servers because it isn't easy. Sure, nobody needs a bachelor to take orders and deliver food to a table. We do more than that, but nothing too brainy, but the qualities you do need as a server outside of the basics just can't be taught in a class. Working with the public, the hungry public, and dealing with anxiety as you wait for food, feeling the intensity as you watch your section fill in 5 minutes. Managing time and multitasking while memorizing orders and mitigating problems. You either have it or you don't. Been a server for 7 years now. I tell people that restaurants are where people treat a side of the ranch like it's an impending cardiac arrest because that is how the worst guests will treat us. There is all the urgency and none of the importance of a medical emergency, I mean barring choking and anaphylaxis, which are exceedingly rare. Imagine you have 12 different tasks to do. Each one takes about 45 seconds. You must do them all within the next 2 minutes, or you lose $5 from your day's pay for each incomplete task. Now, do that every 2 minutes for 7 hours, 6 days a week. When it comes to jobs, knowing what your weaknesses are and not letting people pressure you into doing things that you know you can't handle is an underrated skill. People love to think they know you better than you know yourself. You can do it. Come on, it's not that hard. It'll get better, I promise. Or, God forbid, you're just not trying hard enough. Like, ma'am, when I say I'm terrible at this thing because of X, Y, and Z, no amount of trying or you telling me I can is gonna change that. And like, I get it because they're just trying to be encouraging, but it's really only needed if I say this is something I've been wanting to do or try, but I'm just scared I'm gonna mess up. When I was a hostess, I would get people trying to convince me to become a server because that's technically the next step. But I was like, no, I have no interest in becoming one because I know for a fact I'm gonna be terrible at it. Story 6. Getting into management. No, thank you. I'm right there with you. I hated being in management. I did it for 2 years and it sucked. At the end of the week, the only thing I accomplished was attending meetings. I spent way too much of my time telling people to do their jobs. Just do your job. I was so glad I stepped down. Every time they ask if I want to go back, I tell them I like my weekends. This is what infuriates me. Just do your job. If you're struggling, let me know. Everyone seems to have the pet tasks they hate doing and will simply not do them if they think they can get away with saying, sorry, I forgot. So you have to either constantly stay on them like a micromanaging asshole, or you end up doing all the most distasteful work of everyone in your group, yourself on top of your other duties. Same, maybe not instantly, but I progressed through different management roles for about 4 years before landing the one I'd had in my long-term plan all along. 5 years later, I'm burned out, sick of having people report to me, sick of the ever-increasing workload, being on call / at the company's beck and call 24/7, 365, and ready to go back to a job where I show up and do my work, then go home. No more 11 p.m. and 3 a.m. phone calls. No more interrupted family meals, taking calls on vacation. What's really fun is I ended up in a management role without getting paid a management salary. Yeah, that happened to me. I got told I was going to take a position managing a section of our business. There was already an extreme clique with the employees and the previous supervisor who everyone was sure was going to get the manager position when the current one retired. Nope, they tossed me as manager and another guy back as supervisor. I can still see the deer in the headlights when they announce it. I got screwed daily by random stuff that I had no clue or warning about. I got 4 hours of cram training from the previous manager on his last day, and he basically said, it's a crap show, have fun. On top of that, they never replaced my previous position. I am an engineer by trade, so I was always troubleshooting or redesigning some systems after hours. Oh, and we were in the middle of starting up another small location. Guess who had to remotely manage that 3 days per week, and be on site 2 days per week? This is the job I really wanted. Small scale, lots of design work, interaction with customers about their needs, etc. But was told to do that, I also had to cover this other manager position to have any hope at it full time. Long story short, I'm getting railroaded most days, but somehow staying afloat with 70 some odd hours per week. No pay increase, and every ask for help basically being ignored. 3 times I was promised a pay increase and never saw it. Finally, after several mental breakdowns at home, I decided to start looking elsewhere. At about that time, the lead engineer with whom I did a semester-long work term hit me up about a position opening up and if I was interested. Immediate $12K salary bonus and back to engineering full-time as I went to school for. See you later, alligator. Story 7. I was shocked at how much I hate weighted blankets. People say so many good things about them. I put it over me, boom, instant claustrophobia. I don't even have claustrophobia, except with weighted blankets. I bought a 20-pound one that made me feel like Giles Corey. It was scary to sleep under any other blankets, but the 12-pound one I got later is perfect. I think a lot of the ads suggest too high a weight and lead buyers astray. I sleep with 2 20-pound weighted blankets on me at night. I thought they sounded silly when I first heard of them, but then I tried one and it changed my whole world. I hate sleeping with comforters because they're too thick and bulky and get hot, but 40 pounds of dead weight spread over my body? I'm a happy sleeper. Sometimes I fold them into small squares and stack them over my top sheet before sliding under them, so I can have more weight centralized on my chest as opposed to spread out. I can't get squished enough when I sleep. The heavier, the better. My anxiety/intrusive thoughts peak when I'm trying to sleep. Weighted blankets bring me peace of mind. It's funny to see people don't like them, or they have the opposite effect than they do to me. I had the same experience with weighted blankets. I was hoping it would help my restless legs and anxiety, but it just made me feel trapped and more anxious and panicked. Returned that sucker the next day, and I have pillows tucked around me instead. Now I have an 18-pound cat that sleeps on me, and that's better and more calming than any weighted blanket could ever hope to be. Oh, same. My mom got one for me for Christmas one year, and when I tried it, I decided pretty quickly it wasn't for me. The weird thing is, I love those weighted heating pads that you throw in the microwave. They can do wonders for pain and apparently calmed me down almost instantly when I'd cry as a baby, but I guess a whole blanket is too much. I also moved a lot in my sleep and get up and down pretty often, and a weighted blanket makes that twice as difficult and 3 times as annoying. Story 8. Jogging. I'm in good shape, so it wasn't solely for health reasons. My dog, who I used to go on long walks with, died mostly of old age. I wasn't ready to get another dog, so I decided that jogging would be a great hobby. Feeling connected to the neighborhood was a priority for me, as I found myself staying at home a lot with no dog to walk. So I bought decent shoes, did a little research on methods, and started jogging just a few blocks a day, at first, to get into the groove of my new hobby. Oh my god, I freaking hated every second of it. There was nothing relaxing or enjoyable about it at all, and when I got home every night feeling like I was foolishly making or taking a walk, punishing rather than fun, about 2 weeks in I stumbled and fell, scraping my hands up a little. I walked home, put my new shoes in a closet, and never jogged again. I adopted a new dog about a week later. Yeah, I feel the same way about running/jogging. I was told if I stick with it eventually, it would become enjoyable instead of torture, but after about a month I just knew it wasn't for me. I am perfectly happy with walking. I don't need to get anywhere fast, and if I do, I will drive. Thank you very much. I played a ton of team sports that involved running growing up. I played soccer for 14 years, so it's not like I'm a stranger to running, but running just to run without playing a sport or game is painfully boring. It's like all the hard and boring parts of a sport with none of the fun parts. I've tried so many times to be a running person, and all I can think about when jogging is, this crap is so boring. When can I be done? I love running. 35 years, 5 days a week at this point, but reminds me of when my now wife and I moved in together. She wanted to share my hobby, so got up at 5 a.m. on a crisp September morning to head out for a run. As she said, "It's cold, dark, and scary, and I hate it. I'm going home," after about half of a mile. She has done a few charity 5Ks using a walk/run due to her knees, but otherwise hasn't run since, and she is glad to let me have it. I was in the Navy. I did 60 push-ups, 90 sit-ups, but that simple 1.5 mile run frickin' killed me. The anxiety leading up to it, the fact that it being a physical exam meant I needed to do it in under 12 minutes, just freaking awful. Not to mention, I had an injury on the bottom of my tibia that no one could diagnose for over 6 months. That was the equivalent of running on a sprained ankle. No diagnosis, no sit-outs. Got medically separated because of the surgery and long recovery time that had a high enough chance of not even succeeding. Got surgery 7 years after the fact, and I'm at 90% now. Can feel when it's gonna rain though. Beats fusing the joint, which the Navy would have done. Also, my right shoulder begins to throb and become incredibly pained and sore when I run. I have no clue why, other than the repetitive motion and breathing. I can dig, shovel, and use a pickaxe to break up buried foundations all day and not have the same pain in my shoulder as when I would run. Story 9. Edibles. Didn't enjoy having my memory wiped every few minutes. Same, though my experiences were with smoked weed. I tried it twice, and those were collectively the 6 worst hours of my entire life. The first time I thought that maybe I might have gotten a batch that had salvia in it, as a lot of the horrors I experienced were very similar to the descriptions of salvia trips. Years later, I tried a completely different variety from a completely different source and had the same exact experience. My mom also had the same thing. We've come to the conclusion that we're just allergic to weed or something. Twice was enough for me to know that I'm never going to risk it again. The feeling of constantly being on the verge of completely losing control of myself is so horrifying. I was so terrified that I was going to black out and become violent, just out of fear and confusion. Having to maintain constant conscious control of your every movement for 3 hours straight sucks. God, I had a year where I was trying to enjoy weed so much. Different strains, different ways of ingesting, even mixing it with alcohol. I never experienced a good high where I felt relaxed or even a little munchy. The constant voice in my head got so much louder and talked so much faster that I couldn't keep track of anything I was thinking of. I was so hyper-aware/sensitive to every part of my body. I mean every part. I swear I could feel my individual teeth and my eyeballs moving in my head. I was on the verge of a panic attack. My skin would constantly fluctuate between warm and fuzzy and cold and tingly. I didn't feel like I had any control of my bladder and ran to the bathroom whenever I even thought I had to go, even if I just went 2 minutes before. I had to constantly focus on how I was breathing, or I would be too sucked up in my panicky thoughts that I would forget to inhale. Anything that usually relaxed me didn't work or made everything worse. I finally decided to quit trying when I took a small piece of a gummy and had the worst and longest dissociative episode of my life after the awful high that ensued. I'll stick with my booze that makes me calm and giggly, thanks. I was given an edible brownie to experiment with a few years back. I started small, took a small chunk out of one corner, not wanting to overdo things. 30 minutes later, I was 100% sure that I was going to die. I was hyper-aware that my breathing was just going through this straw-sized opening down my throat, and it was going to close up at any second. 2 full-blown panic attacks later, I started hallucinating that everything was made of Lego. I could see the pieces. My cat joined me on the couch and became convinced it was a dinosaur trying to eat me. My wife had had enough of this and started taking me to the ER. The brownie had to be laced with something. As we got in the car, I puked my guts out and started to feel slightly better. Went back inside, took a shower to clean up, and went to bed. After a couple of hours of apparently I have no memory of this, pleading with her, please don't leave me, and wrapping myself around her, I fell asleep. I gave the rest of the brownie back to my friend, who felt awful, of course. He ended up eating the rest of the thing himself with no ill effects and proclaimed it a nice mellow. Yeah, no, 100% not for me. Story 10. Telemarketing. Very early in my career, I was transferred across the country to another branch. I didn't know anyone and needed more money, so I took an evening telemarketing job. It was selling local newspaper subscriptions outside of their usual area. I managed 3 hours. Nobody working there had time to talk, and absolutely nobody wanted a non-local newspaper. I quit, and a week later I got a check for £6, about $10, which I didn't cash and kept for years as a reminder to focus on my main career. Endured a week of it, needed the paycheck, did okay one day, and the rest of it was torturous, selling Time Life books. Went to the bathroom a lot. I remember 2 calls, a Mr. Dollarhide who sadly told me he could not read, and a woman screaming at me thinking I was having an affair with her boyfriend. I would go on to say any and all phone jobs are incredibly soul-sucking. My first job out of college was an IT managed services phone job for a small IT company in Phoenix. I liked the guys I worked with, but the nature of the job was incredibly stressful and energy-sapping. You would be removed into 5 different end-user work computers, all with different issues. Can't print, not getting email, the Word won't open, etc., while having to continue to answer the phones and troubleshoot. Needless to say, I left after a year. My next job was with Vanguard's inbound call center helping people with their 401k. Good God, that was even worse. Being micromanaged by the soft phone software was just awful, and I hated every minute of it. Answering 100 or so calls a day, having to listen to people bitch and moan about the market fluctuations, wondering why me personally, am responsible for losing the money. I had people tell me that if I didn't process their hardship withdrawal request, that they would personally come find me and slit my throat. After just 7 months of that, I was done with inbound call centers forever. Story 11. Snow skiing. I fell a lot. I hurt my ass. I couldn't figure out how to stand up without falling again. I fell again. I hurt my ass again. I was freezing. It took me another 5 minutes to stand up just so that I could fall yet again and get even colder. Tiny children were whizzing by me like they were competing in some weird kindergarten version of the X Games. I am not cut out for skiing. I went skiing once. I thought my friend was taking me on a hard trail. Nope, it was the bunny slope. I kept falling and had to ride behind my friend holding onto their backpack, while I did pizza with my skis the whole way down. I never wanted to trip a child in my life until I struggled down that hill. The kids didn't even have poles, they were just cruising. It's the kind of thing that's very hard to learn if you don't start young. I'm fortunate to have parents who put me on skis at age 4, so it remains one of my favorite activities. But I've tried to teach friends in their 20s who never tried before and am hugely sympathetic to the challenge. On its face, it's insane. You're willfully throwing yourself down a steep hill with some sharp-edged boards that you have to maneuver in a way your body has never moved before, or you will potentially badly injure yourself. Kudos to you for trying. Thanks for watching until the end. If you have a similar story to these that you would like to share with us, please leave it in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please leave us a like and subscribe. For more videos like this one right now, please stop by our channel. Thanks again, and see you next time.